In this video, we take a look at 10 Japanese watch brands you should know. Let's get started. Kicking off today's list, we have Kuoe. This is a relatively new entrant in the Japanese watch market, founded in Kyoto back in 2020. But it has already made its mark with its unique designs and quality craftsmanship. The brand is known for its minimalist style and attention to detail, which is evident with every watch that they produce. The founder Ushimura was studying at a university in England in 2010. One day he was shopping in an antique store and stumbled across some vintage watches. He was fascinated at how these little pieces of metal still worked so well after 70 years. At that moment, he fell in love with vintage watches. After graduating, the founder moved back to Kyoto, Japan, where he worked in a watch shop, slowly learning the watch industry and eventually created his own brand based around the vintage watches that started his obsession. Kuoe are making big waves in the enthusiast world for their unique looks and compelling design language. The watches that they produce look way more expensive than they actually cost, leading to a premium experience for not a lot of cash. Most of their models only cost a few $100s, making them a favourite amongst affordable watch collectors who are looking for something a bit different. Next up, we have Mirco. Yes, a Japanese micro brand called Mirco. This brand is entirely produced in Japan, down to the last screw, and proudly produced that way too. Their design language is shockingly unique. Their breakout model, the Type 2, is a chronograph with a ridiculously big case and bezel ratio, completely ditching the idea of creating a safe chronograph and instead deciding to be unique and take confidence in their own design ideas. Their new model, the Type 3, is a colourful dive watch that bends traditional design cues and strives again towards originality. Where the big Swiss brands are finally experimenting with flamboyant colours, Mirco instantly releases their first dive watch exclusively in fun and exciting colour options. And to any collectors out there looking for something unique, here it is. Mirco exclusively uses long-lasting materials. All of their models feature automatic movements, sapphire crystals and stainless steel cases, again all made in Japan. Their designs are dividing, an acquired taste. However, there is no doubt that Mirco has started life well, doing things the correct way and sticking to their original principles. Next up, we have Kurono Tokyo, which is probably the most interesting brand on today's list. Firstly, the watches have some of the most impressive dials you will ever see. The model Grand Urushi Ayoma is the perfect example of this. This dial is made using traditional Japanese techniques that have existed for thousands of years, where sap is collected from trees and coloured with pigment. This means that the dial changes over years as the moisture dries out of them, making each and every dial age differently and truly unique. Kurono are not afraid to use bold and exciting colours in their watches. This can be seen with their contemporary sporty yet dressy chronograph collection, which again have some of the best looking dials I have ever seen. Kurono has a very exclusive way of selling their watches. They exclusively do timed releases, where the brand will allow a 10-minute window for customers to buy the model. If you miss this time, you cannot buy the watch. All Kurono watches are made in small batches, making them a truly collectible and exclusive watch to own. Kurono really does approach watchmaking in an artistic way. Minase is a luxury Japanese watch brand, one that ditches the idea of creating traditional looking watches and instead opts to create unique looking timepieces. Every single wristwatch produced by this brand has around 20 hours spent polishing the watch to perfection. The brand uses high quality luxurious materials including real 18-karat yellow gold. Now, the brand uses automatic Swiss movements inside their watches, however not just a standard off-the-shelf movement. Minase instead finishes every movement to a flawless standard, using pelage, blued screws and bridges with polished bevels. Minase really does take a standard Swiss movement and turn it into a masterpiece of modern watchmaking. These watches are highly engineered, using modern techniques and years of research and development. These watches are made in both circular and square cases, both of which have very unique lug designs, which make the watches stand out from other Japanese watch brands. Typically, Minase watches retail for between $4,000 and $5,000, making them a luxury watch brand, in the same price category as the likes of watchmaking giants Omega. However, some would argue you get a lot more watch for the money that you spend. Next up, we have Future Funk, a brand that produces watches unlike any other on today's list. Their incredibly unique and quirky aesthetics are somehow futuristic yet steampunk too. At first glance, they look like a regular digital watch. However, look closer and see something special. These watches feature a flip clock mechanism, which instead of gears typically turning the watch hands to tell the time, now works to turn a gear ratio of drums vertically to tell the time instead. This style of watch is often referred to as jumping hour. However, it is surprising to see a quartz movement using this type of complication. Since this watch was released, of course there have been plenty of cheap knockoffs made, but it seems like Future Funk were one of the first to adopt this design. Surprisingly, these watches aren't popular outside of Japan, which is strange considering their very low price point. Some future Funk models can be picked up for as little as $100, making them a truly unique yet affordable watch micro brand. Out of all of the watches featured on today's list, this is the one that has caught my eye the most. Would you like me to pick one up and review it on the channel? Let me know down in the comments. Coming up next, we have Citizen, which was founded in 1918. This is a historical watchmaker that has been breaking records and innovating for decades. In 1965, Citizen set the global record for the world's thinnest automatic watch with a day-date function. However, their biggest success came in 1976, when Citizen became the first wristwatch manufacturer to create a timepiece that was exclusively powered by solar energy. This was called, and is still known as, Eco Drive. This is where the dial of the watch can absorb both natural and artificial light that charges a cell inside the watch. This will power the watch without the use of a battery or a mainspring. Citizen are widely considered as the best watch brand when it comes to solar power. In fact, some of their most popular models still contain the Eco Drive technology to this day. Not only is it user-friendly, never needing a battery change, but it's also perfect for helping to save the environment. Next, one of the most well-known Japanese watch brands. Seiko has been around since 1881 and has since become a household name in the watch industry. Seiko was the first watch company to introduce the quartz movement, which revolutionized the industry. The introduction of the quartz movement actually led to the quartz crisis, which saw huge Swiss brands struggle and ended the life of many watch manufacturers. Seiko didn't stop there though. They have continued to innovate and create some of the most iconic watches of all time. Seiko is one of the most active watch brands in the world, seemingly releasing a new model every couple of weeks. Typically, Seiko watches are fairly priced and packed with good value and unique designs. This means that the brand is considered one of the best amongst watch enthusiasts. Their prestigious history and continuous mechanical innovation is exciting, and Seiko are without debate one of, if not the, best watch brands to ever exist. Casio is a Japanese watch brand that has become famous for their digital watches. The brand was founded in 1946 and has since expanded into a range of other products, including calculators and electronic keyboards. Casio watches have been seen on the most influential people in the world, including former presidents, billionaires and celebrities, just showing that even though they are super affordable, they are still trusted by the world's richest. One of Casio's most popular collections is the G-Shock line, which includes watches designed for durability and shock resistance. The story goes, the creator Kiku Aibe broke his late father's pocket watch. From that moment, he set out to build a watch that was tough. His aim was to build a watch that has 100 meters water resistance, a 10-year battery life, and could survive a 10-meter drop. It's fair to say he achieved this, and much more. Casio also offers a range of digital and analog watches at a range of different price points, which makes them a favourite amongst watch enthusiasts because they're so affordable yet so functional. Their watches often feature a bold and modern design, with bright colours and vintage design cues. Okay, so coming up next we have Orient, a watch brand that was founded in 1950. Orient is a manufacturer that, in its infancy, was trying to compete for world records and beat the best of the best at watchmaking. They achieved this multiple times. Firstly in 1964 with the Grand Prix 100, which accomplished the world record for the amount of jewels used in a watch movement. Next, Orient in 1967 achieved one of its most impressive feats. It created the world's thinnest automatic wristwatch with a day-date complication. The fineness model knocked Citizen off the top spot, and Orient held this record for a few years. In modern times, Orient is a favourite amongst watch enthusiasts. Their focus on making incredible value for money wristwatches is clear to see. Models like the Bambino are featured in thousands of watch collections across the globe. However, this is a Japanese watch brand rich in history and achievement. Finally, we have Grand Seiko. In the 1960s, Seiko really wanted to compete with the Swiss to create the best watches in the world. It planned to do this by creating two factories, one creating watches as Grand Seiko and the other creating watches as King Seiko. The idea here was to generate competition within the ranks to ultimately force innovation. It's fair to say that Grand Seiko won this battle. After the quartz revolution, Grand Seiko took a bit of a backseat, as Seiko was booming in sales anyway. Grand Seiko is famous for its quality, from the Zaratsu mirror-like polishing to its breathtakingly detailed dials. And in 2004, Seiko yet again revolutionized the industry with its spring drive movement, the world's first watch driven by mainspring power but controlled by quartz at the same time. This allowed for one of the smoothest sweeps of a second hand in all of watchmaking. Then in 2017, Grand Seiko split from parent company Seiko to become its own entity. Again, this was done to force innovation and compete with the highest level of Swiss watchmaking. The finishing of each case, beautiful dial work and one-of-a-kind movements make Grand Seiko so desirable and for some, the best of the best. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, rating, and make sure you watch my video here on screen on the cheapest but coolest watches in the world.